Good morning. It was an amazing week this past week. I mean, a powerful week. I got the opportunity to do a lot of cool things, and I want to share with you some of those things. So, what happened this week? First of all, let me kind of give you a quick rundown. I was in 6 major events this week. Some masterminds, CEO panels. I was dealing with major consulting firms and some large interviews. So, what did I get out of that? What did I get out of that? Because you just can't go to these things and not pick something up, right? I got a lot out of that, and I want to share some of that with you next, right after this. All right, so some key points that came up this week. Some key points. And if you're a business leader, you need to listen up here. You need to listen up. And what I mean by business leader is you're leading people. I mean, you're influencing people. You might be in sales, you might be in management, you might be an executive, you might be a solopreneur running your own business. Talk to a lot of people like that in real estate and mortgage. But ultimately, you need to think about all these things we talked about this week. This was interesting. There's a lot of reflection that I get to go into, and these major considerations going on in society. And if you're just out there with your business, just doing business, you're missing out on a lot of this stuff. And you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your community, you owe it to those that you lead and those that you do business with to consider these things. So I want to touch on them real quick. I mean, it's only going to run for, call it 5-10 minutes here. But the reality is this stuff is stuff you need to unpack and go deeper with. And I do talk about a lot of these things on my weekly videos and things like that. So let's talk about the first thing. Obviously, people were the foundation for so much of this. How do we create a people-loving business where people feel respected, appreciated, looked after by their leadership, and empowered to do better things? So that was really the foundation for a lot of this. So what we're seeing in a lot of businesses is businesses are coming up with a position of, head of people, chief people officer, things like that. And this position is really important. And even if you're a solopreneur, are you interested in your people? Hold up the mirror. It's you. And how your development impacts that business in and of itself. If you go through your business just checking the boxes going, oh, I have to take this class for maybe the state requires it for licensing in my space, or maybe I have to take this for some insurance purpose or whatever it is. The reality is you're not growing your business because you're not developing your people, which is you. People development is one of the key aspects that is sought out in leaders now. And if you're self-leader, then for crying out loud, lead yourself. Lead yourself. And watch how other people start following your self-leadership as well. I talked yesterday on Mind, Body, Business, how the different influential factors affect you and things you need to focus on. So we do need to focus on our mind, having a healthy mindset. Healthy mindset. Are we positive? Are we optimistic? Or are we pessimistic and downtrodden and just like woe is me? Woe is me doesn't work for anything anymore, except it helps you fall into the herd of woe is me people, the woe is me seekers, because misery loves company. You can't run a business and be part of the misery company, okay? It just doesn't functionally work. So all of these business leaders I talked about, I mean, this was like a huge topic. Business leaders I was talking about is, what is the feeling of our employees? Even if you have 1, 2, or 3, or maybe you have I mean, I talked to one guy who had like 140,000 of them. I was on a call with him. And I mean, we have 133,000 agents worldwide also in Remax. We have to think about people. And if you run in the wrong direction, you're hurting yourself in your business, in your life, maybe your family, their futures, things like that. And you might not know it. So you need to hold up the mirror and have a little bit of self-reflection on that. So that's a big part of this. A big part of this people aspect also is understanding your diversity and inclusion in your business. So have you thought about diversity and inclusion in your business? How are you growing your business where it's understanding different cultures, different backgrounds, different histories, different feelings that are within people's hearts and history in their families or where they live, things like that? Because I mean, like in real estate, for instance, we have fair housing, which is incredibly important. But is your business actually looking at your business from that perspective? I don't care if you run a restaurant or if you run an investment firm or something like that. It's part of what you need to be looking at in your value. So let's talk about a little bit of this, because we talked a lot about transition and transformation. So transitioning to what's going on today, and transformation to the future way of doing things. We hear that term reimagine. I hate the term reimagine, but if you're not imagining anything, you're kind of stuck in the mud, right? So you think about that and you go, all right, where do we go? So let's talk about one aspect here: physical versus digital. So I was on a panel and we talked a lot about this physical versus digital piece. We were all working physically in person, and you have a lot of people in supply chain, in production plants, manufacturing, whatever it might be, or maybe they just have to touch paper as part of their business, part of what they do, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that their business is old, archaic, because they have to touch paper. There's a lot of stuff that has, I mean, you can't do everything like out here. Okay, you can do a lot of things, but you can't do everything. When you look at how you build out a business and like production, for instance, great. I'm sitting here in my production room here with a camera and a computer, but the reality is, like, I was on video for several hours this week, and we had a production team behind that. We had people running teleprompters, we had people running lighting, running sound, running cameras, things like that. You got to have people in person in a lot of businesses. So you got to understand that, from this physical versus digital aspect. So there's a balance of these things. So, I mean, one of the challenges, take a look at your business. What's physical? What's digital? What are the needs and capabilities of what you have? So just to write it down and take a look at it is really important. And are you using video? Are you using video? You hear me say it all the time. Okay. The first video call happened in 1964. Did you know that? The first video call happened in 1964. And then in 2010, Steve Jobs released the iPhone 4 on stage, and he made a video call, FaceTime call with his iPhone to Johnny Ive. And they're like looking at each other, smiling and stuff like that. And I keep bringing that up because it's important. I mean, it's 2020, people. First video call was 1964. Get with the times. Okay? If you're not talking to your customers, you're talking to your employees, talking to your leaders, talking to people you affiliate with this way, in a way that is meaningful, catch up. Okay? So we did talk about that quite a bit. And a lot of that leads into what is known as customer experience. Customer experience. Have you done a customer experience audit lately? What is your customer experience that you gave a year ago and your customer experience you give today? Think about that. How is your customer experience transformed from a year ago to today? That's a good question to ask yourself, ask your employees, ask your business. And it's a good exercise to go through, because you look at the evolution of your organization and what are you doing differently? Because there are some really key points in there that you can take and expound upon and grow your business with by recognizing these little tweaks. Maybe you've made 1% or 2% change in these things, but you should be making 5 or 10% change in them. because they've shown great results in doing that. And some other things that you've done that you don't recognize, or that you haven't done that you don't recognize, that you should look at and go, wait a sec, I should get rid of this, right? I should get rid of this because this hasn't transitioned or transformed in the past 12 months in my business. That's important to review. We should always do kind of an operational audit on what we're doing in our business. So we talked about physical, digital, we talked about customer experience. Let's talk about our employees again. Let's talk about our employees. And I mentioned people, having a head of people, a chief people officer, or whatever. But ultimately, what's going on with people today? Okay. What's the big thing that we're coping with respect to employees right now? More than anything else, there's two words, and I mentioned them before: fear and overwhelm. Okay, fear and overwhelm. We're dealing with these things. These are really important things for us to think about because we have a lot going on. And here's a great example of that: school. We have a lot of young families in our business, and we're a very family first business. We respect the family integrity because we want everybody to have a healthy, happy place to bring up their children. I mean, I'm in the housing industry, for crying out loud, as well. I mean, that's really what housing is about, is giving people shelter to raise a family in a happy, healthy way. So how do we deal with our employees with respect to their experience, the employee experience? You talk about customer experience, you should talk about employee experience just as much, because if your employees have a horrible experience, I can promise you your customers aren't going to have a good experience. So you got to think about your employees. And you hear about this people first mentality in business, and I look at all these different strategy books. You go back to I remember when I was doing my my MBA program, looking at the whole business strategy concept. The first thing you always think about is people, because nothing else is going to work if your people don't work. So how do we talk about this customer experience and how it relates back to that people experience and how fear and overwhelm causes problems there? Here's the reality: if you're fearful, if you're worried about something other than business, you're not focused on business. Have you noticed that? Something comes up in your life and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to focus on that. You get a letter in the mail from, let's say it's addressed from the IRS or something like that, and you're like, I'm worried about that. Nothing else matters at that point, does it? Overcome that fear. There's one way to do it. It's face it head on and be confident with what you're doing. How do you deal with fear? You recognize it, figure out where the risks are, where the opportunities are, and make a plan, and then execute with action. Simple. And be present as a leader to take care of that. So, employee experience is incredibly important. Right now, a big part of that is safety. We talked a lot about safety this week in all these different panels I was part of, because safety is the bottom. Physiological and safety needs are the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid. Pull that out and take a look at it. I referred to it a couple times this week. That really, you got those intrinsic needs at the bottom, and then you've got leadership that kind of helps you get to these fulfilling needs up top. So stuff to think about there. A couple other things to go through real quick. Well-being and capabilities, yes. The reality is we have to develop our people. Capabilities is important. Well-being is a reflection of their capabilities. How do we teach them to care about themselves and that we care about them? Little bit of a non-specific there, but it's something that you have to have in your attitude, your values, your mindset is caring about your employees. And then we talked a lot about data, talked a lot about technology, and then ultimately in your business, what's the end of the day? What are you looking at the end of the day? You're looking at your metrics. You're looking at, do you have any profit? Do you have any profit? And how do all these things affect that? So it's important. A lot going on this week. So to sum it up real quick for you, take a look at these things with respect to how does your company deal with people and society? And I can't stress the diversity and inclusion aspect of it enough. We have to care about people. We have to care about people, all people. Okay. So let's care about our communities. Let's care about the people in our communities, the public servants, the schools, the teachers, the families, the people. We should have a more harmonious environment than what we're seeing out there. And it's causing a lot of fear and overwhelm in society and in our businesses. And if we care, then our people will know that we care and they'll have the confidence in us as leaders. And we have to demonstrate that we care. Okay. So we talk about that. We talk about experience, customers and employees. Those things matter. Our leadership in developing that experience and understanding what it looks like. And then, of course, data and technology. How do we understand and use those pieces in order to communicate? Technology, I'm on video, hello. We're on social media right now. And how do these things play into moving your business forward? A lot of insight in this, a lot of insight. And of course, what's the end of the day? What are the end results? What's the impact you've had? Because we're trying to give these people that we just talked about, these customers and these employees, a place that tomorrow looks bright. We have a great future. We create profitability. We create moving forward. We create innovation and change for good. Or we solidify things that work great, because there's a lot of stuff that doesn't need to change in society. It just needs to continue working better and better and keep the focus on it. That hasn't changed either. So that's what I got for you. It was a busy week. A lot of power of association. I wish I could have had you sit there on my shoulder and look at all this stuff going on this week that I got to participate in. It's really cool being part of a great organization, because I get to be part of these great things. But you also have a responsibility of going out and finding out what's great for your business, for society, change for good, or stability for good, things like that. So next week, super exciting as well. I'm going to be meeting with a couple dozen substantial business leaders, and I can't wait to talk to you about that. So have a great weekend. Be safe, be well, be strong. Love you guys. Thanks for all you do. Put in the comments if you have any questions for me, and don't forget, share this video, talk about it, and let's talk about these great key points in leadership and business.